our first weekend in Lent. And this is the first sermon in a 6-part sermon series titled 6 Things to Not Give Up for Lent. So before we enter into our topic for today, I thought we should probably talk about the whole idea of giving up something for Lent. The first thing to know is that you shouldn't feel obligated to give something up for Lent. Giving something up for Lent is strictly a matter of Christian freedom. The Bible doesn't require it any place. So, if you do choose to give something up for Lent, what you cannot do is look down on those that don't. And if you choose to not give something up for Lent, then you cannot look down on those that do. So that's the first rule. With that out of the way, what's the point? What's the purpose in giving something up for Lent? Well, we give something up for Lent as a way of remembering the great sacrifice that Christ made for us on the cross for our sins. And it's helpful to think about what things we turn to when we're stressed out or worried or frustrated. And so if you get upset, if you're having a bad day and you just feel like you need something and that thing that you turn to is chocolate, you're going to give up something for Lent, you might think about giving up chocolate. If you have that same kind of a day and the first thing you think of is, man, I really need a beer, you should probably give up beer for Lent. If the first thing you do is I got to open up my computer or turn on my phone and go to Facebook and vent to all my friends, you might want to think about giving up Facebook for Lent. Why? Well, it's to remind us that when we're in trouble, when we're stressed out, when we're frustrated, when we're worried, our first move should be to turn to God. And so by depriving yourself of those things that you use as a substitute, instead of turning to God, you can be reminded that when we have those problems, God should be our first move. And by practicing reliance on Him for 40 days, you have an excellent opportunity to develop some new and healthier habits. Lent is a time for change. It's a time for repentance. A time for turning around. So if you don't have something that you turn to when you are in need of help or when you just need to burn off some stress, well, then by all means, don't worry about giving anything up for Lent. On the other hand, if you really believe that there is nothing that you turn to instead of God when you face those situations, I would kindly suggest and encourage that you think a little bit more deeply. Because I believe that every single one of us, in one way or another, at one time or another, have things that we look to for help and relief and comfort, things other than God. Now, in confirmation class, which for me was longer ago than I care to remember, 40 years ago to be exact, I was taught that the thing that we first turn to for help when we're in trouble is our God. That's God for us. That's when we know we have a false idol. So, when we are stressed out, when we're worried, when we're frustrated, when we're just having a bad day, where are we going to turn? Is it going to be God, our Creator, our Redeemer, or is it going to be to a false idol? That's the question for Lent. Now, a friend of mine shared a beautiful meditation, kind of a short devotion with me this week. And this devotion was written by a brilliant Catholic theologian and scholar named Richard Rohr. And it started out with these couple of sentences. It said, you become the God you worship. In other words, your image of God creates you. If you get the image of God wrong, everything else that builds on it is going to be inadequate. And I read that on Monday morning, and I couldn't shake it all week long. Rohr is saying that if our image of God is of an angry and vengeful God, just waiting for us to make a mistake so that he can punish us, then we become people who sit around looking at others, waiting for them to make a mistake so we can pounce and punish and demean. We don't punish physically if we don't have the opportunity to punish physically. We certainly punish relationally or verbally. If we believe that God, or our image of God, is one of judgment, then it's very easy for us to be fixated on judging others. If our image of God is of a God who is distant and uninvolved, a God who is disinterested, then it becomes very easy for us to turn to material things for help, whether that be food or sex, drugs or alcohol. But if we have a proper image of God, if our image of God is one of love and mercy and forgiveness, if our image of God is one that says that we best love God by loving our neighbors, that's what we become. We become Christians who look for situations into which we can bring love and forgiveness and peace and mercy. In other words, we become people who aren't just bringing good news. We become people who are the good news. We become people actually who become the good news. So family, should you choose to give something up for Lent this year, I would say, why don't you give up that old false image of an angry and vengeful and distant and disinterested and judgmental God, and trade him in for a proper image of God, one that is loving and full of grace and mercy and forgiveness, and prepare for your life to be transformed. And give up that false idol that you turn to when the chips are down. And when those situations in your life come up that will drive you to that false idol, whether it's food or drink or something physical, turn to God. Turn to the God who was given a choice. Let's face it, Jesus had a choice. He could either die on the cross, he could be brutally beaten, tortured, and die on the cross with the sins of the entire world on his shoulders, or he could just live without you for eternity. That was the choice he made. And he chose death and pain and suffering on the cross. Because that was better for him. That was more bearable for him than to think of living without you for eternity. Turn to that. Don't give up chocolate because you think it might be a good way to lose 10 pounds. Don't give up something because it's going to help you have more time in your day or be more Those things are self-centered. You can give up those same things, but give them up in order to help you turn back to the God of love and mercy and grace and forgiveness. Because repentance, turning around and heading back to the God who loves you, is what this Lenten season is all about. So whatever you do, don't give up Jesus for Lent. In fact, don't give up Jesus for any reason whatsoever. And I promise you that he will never give you up. And I really hope that you can be here next week when our theme to not give up